Good evening. I'm Charles Pearson, the executive pastor of the Friendly Temple Missionary Baptist Church main campus and the facilitator for this event. Our event is How Faith Informs Action. On behalf of our bishop and pastor, Michael Fulton Jones, and the Friendly Temple family, again, I say welcome. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was more than a civil rights icon. He was more than a gifted orator. He was more than a creative communicator. Though his speeches, I Have a Dream and The Drum Major Instinct, clearly established that he was a master communicator. He was a complex man, a focused man, a leader. He was a change maker, someone driven by what Michael Fulton calls moral purpose, taking action to improve the lives of others. As I reflected on Dr. Martin Luther King and his impact on this nation, I came to a realization. At his core, Dr. King was a gospel preacher. He was a believer, and as a believer, he provides a striking example of how we should allow the principles of our faith to inform our actions. This afternoon, I have invited 5 changemakers to share their stories with us. Each of them will have 10 minutes to answer 3 questions. First, who are you and what is your current focus? Second, how did your faith inform or motivate you to do the work that you are doing? And third, what are your current objectives and what's next? Our first speaker is Dr. Michael Jones II. He's Associate Director for Community Science at Washington University Brown School of Social Work in the Race and Opportunity Lab of Homegrown St. Louis. Second speaker is Ms. Carmen Stewart. Carmen is the president and founder of Family Enrichment Support Center. Third speaker is Dr. Adam Pearson, the Chief Operating Officer for Peter and Paul Community Services. Fourth speaker is Ted Winters, Church Elder at Central Presbyterian Church and the Pastor Chaplain at St. Louis Justice Center's County Jail. And then our final speaker will be Farrakhan Shigog, co-founder of Young Voices with Action and community activist. In addition to listening to and being inspired by these amazing individuals, we want to hear from you. Please answer 2 questions in the chat for us as the process develops. What is your faith calling you to act upon? And secondly, what is a first step that you can take in 2022 about acting on your faith? If you're already in action, already committed to doing work, share what you're currently doing as a change maker in your own way. Please react and respond as our speakers share. Use chat to react, use chat to share. You understand the power of call and response. After all, we know what church is all about. And we want to hear from you. And now, let's listen to our first speaker, Dr. Michael Jones II.
Good evening, Friendly Temple family. So excited to be here and to share with you, along with these esteemed panel members, on behalf of the youth ministry at Friendly Temple and my professional role at Washington University in St. Louis. So I'm so excited to be here. Kudos to you, Dr. P, who brought that amazing word this morning. I'm still on fire from what he shared. So yeah, Dr. P asked us to share a little bit about how our faith experience informs the action that we do. And I'll start by talking a little bit about who I am and what my current focus is. Who I am first and foremost, I'm a Christian. And that's very, very important to me to be, because this idea of what it means to be a Christian, it takes on a different light today, I think, particularly from my lens of what it means to focus on youth and young adult ministry. I think in years past, when one would assume that they were a Christian, you could assume rather the different stance they take, the things they believe in, the people they associated with. And today, I think it's a little different. Today, I think we are really reassembling what this term means. And I'm not talking about, let me say as a forefront, I'm not talking about what it means to be saved or a blood-washed believer. That still holds true and that will not change. But I'm talking about our social interactions, the people who we engage with. And nowadays, this term Christian, I could be liberal, I could be conservative in my views, I can be in the middle, I can be on this side or that side. And so what it means to be Christian, I think this generation that we are in are really challenging what it means, especially as it relates to justice and action. And not only that, I'm a father. I'm a father, and what that means is that I am very aware of the actions that I have and the informed experiences that I have and how they influence, particularly my son. Like we have those of us who are parents, we have the unique responsibility to really put the foundation down for our young ones who are the next generation. And there's a lot of weight and responsibility that comes around that. And I'm always in constant prayer about what it means to be a father and making sure that my son has some things foundationally that he needs to be successful. And third, but certainly not least, I'm bivocational. I'm bivocational. And what I mean by that, I have one foot within the academy, if you will. So I work at Washington University at the Brown School of Social Work, really focusing my efforts on research initiatives as it relates to Black males within the St. Louis region. And so I have one foot in the academy where we're focusing a lot of our efforts on research for the next generation, looking at data that will affect our community 20 to 30 years down the line. And I have one foot as a youth pastor, really thinking critically about this Black church tradition and how this Black church tradition, as we go into the next generation, how this Black church tradition is really being challenged. What are the things that what are the things that, as it relates to our Black church tradition, that needs to be sunsetted, and what are the important things as it relates to the things that need to be carried on and passed on to the next generation. And so when I say those things, in terms of my bivocational piece, it informs how my faith really motivates me to do the work, how my faith really motivates me to do the work. And what I mean by that is that one of the things that I enjoy about working with college students is that college students are at a crossroads. They're at a crossroads where one of my favorite researchers, her name is Sharon Dolez Park. She talks about the college student experience is that it's like a fork in the road. And these college students are just one decision away from ruining their lives, or they're one decision away from making the most out of their experience. And I love this. I love to really engage students during this time of life and help them walk alongside them during their faith experience. And so how my faith informs the work that I do has directly to do with my spiritual formation. And I'm one to recognize that when we're talking about spiritual formation, it's ongoing. It's ongoing. So when we're talking about spiritual formation, it's ongoing. And not only with our college students, it's something that we experience for the rest of our lives, right? And so in seminary, we call this that process of sanctification and trying to be more and more like Jesus every day. And so this being able to inform students in their spiritual formation sort of gives me or informs the work that I do. It motivates me. It keeps me going for what's next. And I'm excited to do that work. Why? Because I have a responsibility to the next generation. I really do. And I believe that the realization of these things is particularly as we're talking about our objectives and what's next for me. And I see the chat still coming up. I apologize. It's coming in the middle. But when we're talking about what's next in terms of the next generation, I have a responsibility towards that generation to do the things that I need to do and make my mark on that. And it may be small. It may be small when you're talking about it, but just throwing one pebble, the effect of a pebble, what it can have on the next generation. And so I'm encouraged by that. And I stay encouraged because of my faith experience, because a lot of the work that I do, when you're looking at the statistics, or particularly as it relates to our Black community, it can be daunting. It can be daunting. And what encouraged me the most is the end game. What encouraged me the most is that at the end of the day, whether things are made right on this surface, God is going to come back one day and come back for his people and make all these crooked situations, dismantle systems that are unfair, that put people in certain situations. He's going to dismantle that. And that's my faith. That's my hope. That's why I strive to do the things that I do on a daily basis. And so I'm excited to hear from these other panelists and hear some of the pieces that they have. And I'll be looking at the chat in terms of if anybody wants to engage this situation further. But I look forward to talking to you further. Thank you.
Special thanks again to our first speaker. Next, we have Ms. Carmen Stewart, I mentioned earlier, Carmen is the president and founder of Family Enrichment Support Center and a whole lot more, but I'll let her share those. So again, please welcome Carmen Stewart.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much, Dr. Pearson and Bishop Jones, for allowing me the opportunity. It's such a blessing. Who I am. My name is Carmen Stewart. I am founder and president of Family Enrichment Support Center. I also am executive director and founder of Steward Mentoring. So, with Family Enrichment Support Center, what we do is we provide resources and recreation for youth and families, and we do that in the form of different programs and events. So, we try to do things for the entire family. We do a community event called I Am Because We Are, and that's meant to be for the entire family. We do a males event for men, of course, and we're in partnership with several different agencies. So Riverview Gardens is who we're in partnership with that. We do a girls event, and we're in partnership with Apostolic Women St. Louis. We do a we were doing a women's program called Pillar Talk monthly for women with Reprieve Wellness Center. And we had a gardening and nutrition program that we did with St. Louis Public Schools and Urban Strategies, a few other organizations. So we take a holistic approach for the entire family. And of course, it is Christian centered, Christ centered. So that is our focal point, really. We encourage and we inspire people in the Lord, but we do it outside the walls of the church. With Steward Mentoring, what we do is some therapeutic mentoring, and we do it through something called expressive arts therapy. And so we focus on written and verbal expression. And it's a really awesome program, if I might say so myself. But we're in partnership with Better Family Life with that, and so it's been a true blessing to serve in that capacity, which leads to the second question, which is how did my faith motivate me to work to do the work that I'm doing? I consider myself to be a person of radical faith. I trust God for what the world deems impossible, but we know with God, nothing is impossible. He's able to do all things. So I've just always had faith that um, God would he would open up doors because I'm so passionate about seeing families healed and restored and delivered, particularly amongst Black and minority families. I'm very passionate about that. So it's just always been my desire. And the faith walk has been simply amazing. I can share some testimonies with you about how God just superseded my expectations. But I mean, that would be the whole session. But I'll share one testimony of faith, which and faith is action. So many times we don't realize that faith is actually moving. God says, faith without works is dead. So my last job was in 2015, and I really kept feeling this urge to quit my job. And many people thought I was crazy, of course, but I was wanting to quit my job to pursue Family Enrichment Support Center full time because it was my heart and my passion. Although I was serving families at my job, but I just felt the nudge. And I went and told my supervisor. She thought I was crazy too. I told her, I said, I'll let you know for sure when I come back over the weekend because I knew God was going to give me a word. And sure enough, um, at church with Bishop Jones, he preached on stepping out of the boat. I said, okay, there's my confirmation. So I quit my job and pursued family enrichment full time. Now, it won't always be easy, but you have to trust God through the process, because he will send you everybody that you need. He will provide for you everything that you need in stepping out on the purpose and the plan that he has for you. So always trust him. And the last thing, what are my current objectives? So you must always be open to hear the voice of God, and sometimes he ends up changing your direction. Now I'm still serving families, of course, but he has me on a new path. So my current objectives are listening to the step-by-step directions from God in this next path he has me on. Still, like I said, still working with families, but it's just in another capacity. So that would be my say to you. Um, just trust God through the process. Be open to shift if he decides to shift you, because you want his fullness. That's what's most important. So that's it. Thank you all so much.
Carmen, thank you. Thank you. I was excited before we started this. I'm more excited now. Our third speaker is Dr. Adam Pearson. I said earlier, Dr. Pearson is the Chief Operating Officer for Peter and Paul Community Services. Dr. Pearson, the floor is yours.
Thank you all so much. My name is Adam Pearson, and I want to express my heartfelt appreciation for Dr. Charles Pearson for facilitating this discussion. And hats off to the panelists. Really great, humbled to be in the same space with you today. So I'm an occupational therapist by trade. And for those of you who are not familiar with occupational therapy, the focus of OT is to engage people who are living with disabilities, chronic health conditions, or major life disruptions, and to help them get back into the activities that they find meaningful and helpful. So these are things that we consider occupations. An occupation can be driving to work, changing a kid's diaper, playing an instrument, or voting. Anything you find the need and desire to do, that's something that we try to engage people on. So many times a health condition impacts the way that we're able to do those things. So OT can step in as a health professional and work as a part of an interdisciplinary team to assess the issue, come up with person-centered solutions, and help people get a little bit more independent. So we work in a variety of settings, often found in hospitals, nursing homes, rehab facilities. You can also find us out in the community, and that's where I work. So I work at a homeless services organization called Peter and Paul Community Services. We were founded 40 years ago. Our mission is to walk with people facing homelessness on their journey to lifelong stability. We serve hundreds and hundreds of people each year through several programs, including housing, emergency shelter, transitional programs. Our emergency shelter is in Soulard, in South City. We have 2 transitional housing programs, one in Tower Grove neighborhood, one in Dutchtown. And then we have a permanent supportive housing program in Benton Park West. The idea of all of these is to work with individuals who may find themselves on the streets either temporarily or long-term. And a lot of the individuals that we serve have significant or severe mental illness, such as bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, major depressive disorder. Many of them have substance use disorder. 100% of our clients come from situations where they face trauma. Many of our clients are individuals who are escaping from domestic violence situations. So we serve a number of adults throughout the spectrum of homelessness. We also have several employment-based or leisure-based programs, including an arts program, a street soccer program, and a work incentives program. So the question about how my faith has guided me towards this work, one of the predominant things in the Bible, there's a lot of things in the Bible, but the one that has stuck out to me the most, especially in recent years, is to advocate for justice and liberation with special attention paid to individuals who experience poverty. In the Bible, I mean, it's hard to even count how many times the apostles, folks in the Old Testament, Jesus himself mention poverty and supporting people and engaging people in escaping poverty. And being homeless epitomizes this condition, especially in modern society. And most people who lack housing only need temporary supports to get back on their feet. This work can help to meet some of the needs of those individuals, as well as a smaller percentage of individuals who need long-term, permanent supportive housing. So Christ has taught us that we are all worthy of life. Indeed, he proved that on the cross. And while we have life, I feel like those of us who have the ability and the resources and privilege should seek to help others maximize their lives and live stably in the community with an opportunity for them to find meaning. Whether that meaning is to go out and find work, go out and find housing, use drugs a little bit less, get primary care doc. Those are all the things that I am passionate about, that our organization is passionate about. So my role in the organization is Chief Operating Officer. So it is my charge to oversee all of our programming, a division of around 50 employees, oversee strategic planning, facilities management, evidence-based practices, all of that. So my daily objectives tend to revolve around all of those activities in some manner. And insofar as it intersects with my faith, my charge is to lead with compassion, ethics, fairness, grace, and a sense of urgency. The reason I say urgency is because the average life expectancy of somebody who is homeless in the United States is between 42 and 52 years of age. I'm gonna say that one more time because that is a devastating statistic. The average life expectancy of somebody who is homeless in the United States is between 42 and 52 years of age. So there's a significant opportunity for us to shore up equitable housing solutions to get people off the streets, build more shelters if need be as a stopgap, in order that they can more efficiently and effectively access the healthcare and public health services that they need to live a fulfilling life. To that end, we are engaged in a process of significantly expanding our shelter services over the next couple of years, which will include facility expansion and dozens of new staff hires. It's a journey for us, and I'm excited about what the future holds. Again, thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to the rest of this discussion.
Again, thank you, Dr. Pearson. Our fourth speaker is Ted Winters. Ted Winters, as I said earlier, church elder at Central Presbyterian Church and now serving as the pastor chaplain at St. Louis Justice Center and County Jail. So again, Ted, the floor is yours, sir.
Can you hear me? Can you all hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? You can hear me. You can hear me. You can hear me. You can hear me. Something's going wrong. Something's going wrong. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I think we're going to need to go to the next speaker while Carmelita works on Ted's technical difficulty. Carmelita, can we make the shift to the next speaker? Be Farrakhan Shigog. Farrakhan Shigog is the co-founder of Young Voices with Action and a community activist. As in my former role, I had a chance to actually interact with this young group of people on several occasions. So we're excited to have Farrakhan appear with us today and share a little bit about these young people as well as his other activities in the community. So please welcome Farrakhan Shigog.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dr. Pearson. Thank you so much. Giving honor to God, my pastor, my bishop, giving thanks to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for giving me another opportunity to be here on this side of glory. So I'm just excited. I'm happy to be here to join this great men of God, these great men who are passionate and are committed with the work that they're doing, and most importantly, they're doing their work and they're being led by the Spirit. So I'm grateful to be joined on this panel with such great individuals. And again, Dr. Pearson, thanks again for extending the invitation for us to be represented here on this on this conversation. I think that this is a very important conversation, and I also think that everything in which we hear today and even receive from those who are watching online, I think that we ought to take it, learn from it, and see how we can apply it to our everyday life. So again, as Dr. Pearson stated, I serve as president of Young Voices with Action, such a great and wonderful group of young people, of which I am so honored and so blessed to be working alongside with. We have been in the St. Louis community since 2016, and since 2016, we have managed to develop and train young people from almost every neighborhood across St. Louis and St. Louis County. For the past 5 years, we have been systematically employing young people through our Civic Ambassadors program, where we're training these young people to be the leaders that they're destined to be, and also to be the leaders in which our community is asking for, and of which our community is in need of. But not only are we focused on training the next generation of young leaders, but we're also working to create the space and to create the environment to where these young leaders will be able to flourish in. Oftentimes we prepare ourselves and we train ourselves the right way and the way that is spirit led. And then when we are preparing to transition to really have an impact and really to have influence on things, sometimes the space is corrupted, and the young minds that have just been trained don't have the room or don't have the path or don't have the opportunity to flourish. And so we want to work hard to make sure that if we're training young people to be the next business leader, we want to make sure that the business community is clean, that the business community is full of other faithful and other servants of God as well. If we're training young people to be the next governor or the next president or the next senator, we want to make sure that that space of politics is free, that is free of just hatred and bitterness and anything that is not of God. And so we just want to make sure here at Young Voices with Action that when we train our young people, when we are training our young people, we're giving them the space and the environment to flourish. So how my faith have directly impacted me to do this work? Well, my faith, without my faith, I it's hard to even put it into a language. It's hard to even put it into an expression. But without my faith, I honestly would not even would have even been involved this long. my faith have allowed me to really have patience. It's allowed me to have understanding, and it really allowed me to seek understanding in areas where I don't have knowledge of or don't have knowledge in. God has really humbled me so much, because of course, you know, when I was young, I was a child. I was a young person, and if I had an organization like Young Voices with Action when I was growing up, as a young man or as a young teenager, I probably wouldn't have been in much of the trouble that I used to get in. And I know it's weird to be here to say, you know, that hey, look at you now. You're serving, you're faithful to God, you're getting these awards, you're working a 9 to 5, but all of that is great and all of that is good, but we all know that there's a story behind everything. And that story, my story, is that I was not always perfect. I was not always that young man that's always getting called upon to speak on behalf of another group. I was not always that young man that that went to school every day and stayed out of trouble. I stayed in trouble. I kept getting suspended from school. I kept getting on punishment. I kept getting my butt whooped by my parents. But looking back on that time, my faith allowed me to learn from that and not be bitter and not be upset for those that punished me as a child for simply being a child, for not being a child. For that's really for what I was used to get punished for getting out of a child's place. But I'm grateful, and I'm glad that with the Spirit, with the Holy Spirit being not just in me but also around my family, that it enabled me to have a strong sense of perseverance. God always sends reminders to all of us that no matter how dark it is, no matter how rough it is, no matter how tough it gets, that there's always a path forward. And that is the same path, the same opportunity that through Young Voices with Action, we want to make sure young people across the St. Louis region have an opportunity to grow and expand. So our objectives for this year, 2022, we're expecting a great year. Everyone from our viewers, Dr. Pearson, and everyone that is on this panel as well, know that I have multiple hats. And one of my hats, and one of the most honorable hats that I wear, is to serve in the church, is to serve alongside my pastor, Robert Lloyd at New Perfect Peace, who just successfully merged churches. And I'm so happy and I'm so proud to be just to be a student of God. And so our objective for this year is to make sure that every young person knows who God is, regardless of what background you come from, what neighborhood you stay in, regardless of what school district you go to. Know who God is and have respect for God. And number two, our objective for this year is that we plan to unveil a massive mixed-use development project not too far from our church, Friendly Temple, on Martin Luther King in the Wellston Loop. We're hoping this year to unveil a mixed-use development project that will be able to attract businesses and also new residents and existing residents to the neighborhood and to the community, while at the same time creating revenue and creating income to be able to be circulated within our own community. And so we're excited about the mixed-use development project down in the Wellston Loop, and that is our objective this year. And so since we're speaking of development, you know, these young people that are responsible for saying, hey, I'm tired of seeing vacant houses in my neighborhood. I'm tired of seeing my elders and seniors struggle to pay bills. I'm tired of seeing this single mom outside cutting the grass on her own and by herself. Well, these young people said, look, Farrakhan, we need to come together. We need to do something. We need to put a plan together. And this is the plan that we are going to unveil together in 2022. So I'm grateful for everything that God has done. I'm grateful for everything that God will do. And I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to share who I am and to share the awesome ministry that I'm a part of, and also our plans for 2022. So thank you, everybody, for viewing. And thank you, Dr. Pearson, for giving me the opportunity.
Exciting. I've been taking notes as these four speakers have talked, and I got so many things I want to just tease out a little bit more of as we go forward. We now have our last speaker, and then we'll talk as a whole group. Ted Winters, I believe, is prepared now. We have gotten rid of the gremlins in the technology. So Ted Winters, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I'm blessed to be a part of this panel. I'm a 79-year-old retired father of 2 wonderful children and grandfather of 2 fabulous grandchildren who regularly FaceTime me and thereby keep me up to date and young in mind and heart. They both live on the West Coast, which I'm leaving next week to go out and spend a couple weeks with them. I can't wait. In my earlier years, I was enjoying a plethora of wonderful life experiences, moving all around the US, succeeding in some great job opportunities, climbing the ladder of success, and pursuing achieving what I believe was the American dream. And I thought that I was the one making it all happen. I was doing it my way. And then when I was 36 years old, God got a hold of me and called me out of my self-focused life and the works of a work-based religion. And he called me into a born-again relationship with him as my personal Savior and Lord. And he began transforming my life. And as he was transforming me, he revealed to me that he had a better plan for my life. And he called me into ministry, ministering to those who were incarcerated, locked up. And now I'm celebrating my 36th year in jail as the chaplain, as the pastor, and ministering to those. One day he again reminded me, Ted, when you are ministering to those in jail, truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me. Wow. And I had to relearn how to really listen to the least of these, my brothers, and to be able to have deep compassion and relate to their plight. And they're searching for some answers and for some hope. And it became increasingly crystal clear to me, and also to some of them, God revealed that he was and is their only hope, their only answer. So God helped me to build some trust, to gain some credibility with them. And I pointed them to Jesus and to God's word. My current focus. In 2020, the Director of Justice Services and the presiding judge in St. Louis County Justice Services created a new one-of-the-kind, it's called a Clergy Bond Pretrial Release Program. It enables selected, those with lower-level, nonviolent, non-sexual charges to be released from jail and into a clergy mentor, faith-based program in their new housing facility. And I'm happy to inform you that this past week, we just secured the necessary approvals to start up this pilot test program in early March. And the way that it came together, it is, in my opinion, only God could have orchestrated that. Now, who are these selected individuals? There are 7 classifications of felonies, and we're focused on the lowest 3, the D, E, and F levels. So there's 187 men and women currently in Clayton Jail who are part of that 187. Statistics reveal that 7 out of 10 men and women will be coming back into jail within 3 to 5 years after they're released with heavier charges. If we could take that 187 and the groups that will be coming into our clergy bond pretrial release program and reduce it by 10%, reduce the recidivism by 10%, we will be saving St. Louis County and the jail over $1.5 million a year. And if we increase it even a greater reduction of recidivism, they'll be turning in over $2.5 million. Now, so I ask you to pray for the success program and for the men who are going to be released into it, be transformed by God, turning from crime to Christ through the power of the gospel. Now, maybe there's some who are listening or who will be listening to this, and they say, how is this relevant to my life today? In this regard, may I suggest that maybe some of us are still searching for answers to the things that we've been struggling with, some for many years, and that maybe we still do not have the answers that we need to work and resolve these struggles. Maybe God is calling us, calling one who is listening, to be transformed from captivity of our struggles and discover his answers from the God of the universe who loves us and wants us to be set free. Will you, I'm putting on my pastor's hat, will you please consider asking him today to transform you and to give God all the glory? Amen and amen.
Wow. Wow. Carmelita, let's get everybody back on screen together. Just want to take a moment. Yes. Yes. Yeah. I want to say thank you to each one of you for sharing who you are and what you're doing. And I want to reframe why we got to this particular point. We have for years taken MLK Day and revisited speeches which were amazing. Look at the marches, celebrate his biography. And again, I came to realize that if he were alive now, would still be challenging us about how we are addressing the challenges that we're seeing every single day. The 5 people that are on the screen with me in their own ways have begun to address those. And I would also say to each one of you again, as you think about Dr. King, he covered a lot of things. We think just about civil rights, but he talked about economic equity. He talked about reinvestment in communities. He talked about housing. He talked about access to solid healthcare. He talked about all of those things. And so we don't want to pigeonhole his message. And the people that are on this screen, I think, have taken a holistic view. Each one of them is looking at a different aspect of human challenges that we see, and they have brought their faith and their talents to that. So Carmen, Dr. Jones, Ted, Farrakhan, Dr. Pearson, let me just say again, thank you. I thank you because I know each one of you and I know what you're doing, and I know that you are touching lives. So I really appreciate that. I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. Anything else? You each have heard each other talk. We'll just take a few minutes and talk. Anything surfaced for you? There was a provoking thought as we were sharing. Just want to hear from you a little bit. Dr.
P, I like to earlier when I thanked all of the panelists, I failed to recognize Miss Carmen. Miss Carmen, I apologize, but we have the sisters in the house too, and I got to make sure that we reference our sisters as well. So Miss Carmen, I apologize about that, and we go way back. And it's always good to see you and be with you.
She was going to get me after the program, man.
Yes, she was. Yes, she was.
I forgive you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Dr. P, I'll chime in quickly. And this came up when I heard Brother Farrakhan talking most specifically about his past. And I think that it is important for us as change makers, or whether we're talking about Dr. King, is to be okay with making mistakes, right? And I remember And as you mentioned, Dr. King was full of flaws. Like he didn't live a perfect life at all, as you said so eloquently today when you were preaching. But I'm reminded of a few things. As a leader within the community, and Dr. P, I was chatting with you about this earlier during our one-on-one. I'm in a season of my life where I am trying to figure out how to manage different buckets of responsibility and how, but one of the, so whether it be parenthood, whether it be education, whether it be athletics or whatever bucket or sphere I'm in, I'm in a season of my life now where I'm trying to figure it out. And the one thing that remains consistent throughout that is my faith experience. And I think it's important, particularly for the work that everybody here is represented here, that we have individuals who take their faith experiences into uncomfortable spaces. And that is so important. I know each of the people on this panel do that, but it's not always easy. You hear me? And it's not, and you can be in some spaces where it's uncomfortable, where you say, okay, if I say this, how will this person respond to me or whatnot? But sometimes the change is just being in the space, right? Because we like to gather amongst each other, particularly among Christians. We feel more comfortable in those spaces. But to be like Adam and to be like Farrakhan and Carmen and Ted, to be doing the work in different areas to where we can spread the love of Jesus Christ in different spaces that may not be uncomfortable, that is so important. And I think it uplifts the spirit of Dr. King in his vision.
Charles, I'd like to add that I was struck by Adam Pearson's comments and what he's doing, and I want to follow up with him because we bring programming, all different kinds of programming, into the housing facility, and I'd like to work with you and see if you can help us.
Sounds like a connection.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the door is always open, Ted. Absolutely. I've known you for quite some time. I know your work. I know your heart, your passion, your ministry. Mike, I want to piggyback off of something that you said, because I think it's, just kind of reflecting on Dr. King. One of the things that struck me the most about him was not only his obvious passion for the faith and his ministry, but his ability to reach out to different groups and form coalitions to build change. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's really interesting to me, because a lot of the work that we're talking about, whether it is providing family resources to people, whether it is engaging a university at a citywide level to work with young Black men, whether it's working in the community to build supports for seniors, working in prisons. I mean, across all the work that we do, we can't do it in silos. And it seems like in order for us to have the most impact, we have to reach out to people who might not have a serious faith background, or who might be of a different faith, or people who, faith is like the last thing on their mind. They're just trying to make it from day to day, just trying to survive, right? And so I think the really interesting thing that Dr. King brought to my mind is the fact that we can build these systems together to make society better for everybody, regardless of who's in the room, regardless of what their background is. I think the commonality is that we are serving people for the glory of God. And that's kind of like for a lot of us, it's like the ultimate thing, right? Like if we can glorify God in the process of providing housing, or working in ministry, or working with young men, for us, it's kind of like the end goal, but we can work with other people in the process. And I think that's really interesting.
Well said.
Yeah.
So Carmen, let me get back to you real quickly, because we've had a couple of one-on-one conversations, and you spoke to when you think about families, I recalled you talking to me about addressing individuals within families, but again, gradually recognizing the need to kind of address families as a whole. Can you say a little bit more about that, Carmen?
Mm-hmm. You said to address families as a whole. Can you repeat that last part?
Oh yeah. Well, we had talked once about just the programs that you were doing kind of individually for this group and that group, but then beginning to recognize that looking at families as a whole was an important way to approach the kind of work you were doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because as we know, we see so many families that are what word? Dysfunctional, for lack of a better word. So it's always been my desire to bring the proper function back into the family. And of course, Christ being the center of the family, but you have to find innovative ways, of course, when you're doing it outside the walls of the church. So in doing these programs that we've done, what we do is, just like Dr. Pearson said, we kind of and we sneak it in there. We don't put, a lot of times we don't put, we don't put it on the flyer, but when the people show up, God is there. So I think that, that's, of course, that's the most important component, is making sure that we give people Christ, but to get that family structure back.
So as I've looked and looking at the faces on the screen, I'm looking at kind of a broad range. I've heard housing being addressed. I've heard the adolescent development being addressed. I've heard when I say housing and homelessness being addressed. And one of the things that I know from Peter and Paul's work, that it's not just homelessness, but it's also developing life skills in them and supporting them in getting healthy. For example, the homeless becoming vaccinated. I have to say too that coming out of education, we often hear this conversation about the school to prison pipeline. And the truth of the matter is that many of the individuals that are currently incarcerated are people from our community. And so the idea that Ted offered is yet another way that another role or another need in our community is getting addressed. And that's important. So what I wanted to just share with the audience is that as we look at this panel, what we're seeing is individuals who are tackling bits and pieces of all the challenges that our community faces. And that they can do this. What am I saying? It's the same idea I said in my sermon this morning. I ask those who are listening to challenge themselves, what is God saying to you? What is pressing on you? Because if he's really laying that at your heart, then that means that he will empower you to tackle that. And again, you may not be on an international scale. The individuals that are on the screen, my colleagues, my friends, my brothers and sisters in the faith, these individuals are here with us, but doing the kind of work that Dr. King did on multiple levels. And really, that's the goal of our time together today. So we're coming close to the end, but I did want to be sure I offered some final comments from anyone else on the screen to like to share in any aspect as we begin to close.
May I, Dr. Pearson?
Yes,
I want to
please, Farrakhan, please.
Just honoring and recognizing Dr. King. This past week, Dr. Pearson, and I noticed you was in attending as well. So thank you for attending the Mid-County Martin Luther King celebration. And so just allow me just very briefly to how that level of unity and togetherness was even able to come about. So yes. We had we've started a Martin Luther King celebration where we would march down Martin Luther King, really just highlighting the issues with the disinvestment in the corridor that bears his name. Mm-hmm. And so as we noticed that other communities surrounding us was also celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King. So we reached out and said, let's work together and plan a regional Martin Luther King celebration. So now we have the city of Pine Lawn, the city of Northwoods, the city of Jennings, the city of Pagedale. We have multiple other cities that are now part of this mid-county celebration. And so recognizing that, Dr. Pearson, this past holiday, it made me mindful of one of the interviews that Dr. King and Harry Belafonte said. And this is one of the most lines that most people my age who are in the community, who are on front lines, who are pre and post Ferguson 2014. And that's that one phrase that of Dr. King sharing with Harry Belafonte, that I fear that we're integrating our people into a burning house. And so a lot of people take that in multiple different ways. But in that same line that is not rarely mentioned, Dr. King also tells Harry Belafonte that we have to be firemen and put the fires out.
Yeah.
So we have people on this call who are on this conversation who are putting the fires out in our prison systems, who are putting the fires out in that school to prison pipeline, who was putting those fires out in our dysfunctional families and in our divided church communities and even in our homeless community. So I'm mindful of that. And our call to action, y'all, is we have to be firemen and put these fires out, because the only way that we're going to all develop and all prosper is that we all do it together in the name of Jesus. So thank you.
I suddenly have this urge to open the doors of the church.
That's my hard head, Dr. P.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. You know, that great closing. Great closing. Great closing. Great closing. I want to thank each one of you for participating, and for the audience, I want to thank you for participating. I'm invigorated and I'm inspired. I retired into yet this new season. I'm like Ted. It's like, what's next, Lord? What do we need to do? What are the issues? What are the challenges we can bring to the table? So it is not by mistake the makeup of this panel. There are several generations on this call. No, Ted and I have our piece. The rest of you have your piece, but all of us are still facing the same issues, working to improve our community. So again, thank you to the panelists. Thank you to those who posted in the chat. I've been scanning and I saw a lot of encouragement. I want to thank each one of you for that. I'm hoping that we'll be posting this later, so the chats will be there. And I will still invite every single one of you to really pray about what you can be doing, what God is calling on you to do in terms of meeting the needs of our community. I want to close with this one verse. Ephesians 2:10 says, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." I love this verse because it says that we are divinely created to do good works. We don't do good works to be saved. We do good works because we are saved. That we were designed for problems that now exist. The problem existed, and then we were created as a solution to that problem. So not just those of us on this panel, but each one of you that are listening, know that you were created, you were designed, you have purpose. I encourage you to let your faith direct you in the actions that you need to be taking. We ask that you be safe by taking care of yourself and therefore showing love to others. We also pray that the Lord of peace himself will give each one of you peace at all times and all ways. Again, thank you. Thank you. And next time we see you, we'll probably be talking about Black History Month. Got some ideas about that. So again, take care, all of you. God bless you. Thank you.
you.
Good evening.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you.